and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Modernizing Our Healthcare for Today's Needs breakout session. My name is Stephanie Bagnall, and I will be your moderator for the next 30 minutes. Before we get started, I'd like to go over some quick housekeeping items. If you would like to turn your camera on during the discussion, please do so. However, you are unable to unmute yourself, so feel free to engage in the public session chat, which you'll see on the right side of your screen. We also ask that during the Q&A portion of this discussion to include your name, organization, along with your question, and again, in the public chat session on the right side of your screen. With that, in the next 30 minutes, we'll reflect on the past 16 months and explore the lessons we've learned from this global pandemic. More importantly, we'll hear from our speakers momentarily on the critical role that foundational infrastructure like hardware and semiconductors play in life-saving devices and the future of healthcare. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our incredible session speakers. First up, we have TJ Walia, Business and Product Lead at Microsoft Azure IoT. Our second speaker is Katrina Diassis, Product Safety Test Engineer at Nemco. Thank you both for being here today and leading this important discussion. So let's dive right in. At the beginning of COVID-19, there was a mad dash around the globe to secure PPE and life-saving medical equipment, which exacerbated gaps in Canada's supply chain. What lessons have we learned about the critical role that foundational infrastructure like hardware, sensors, and semiconductors play in life-saving devices and the future of healthcare? TJ, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is TJ Walia. I lead the IoT business of Microsoft Canada. Feel free to get in touch with me as well over LinkedIn, and I believe we'll get the link to you folks in the chat as need be. But Steph, thanks for asking that question. It's a very important and interesting one. But the way I want to actually frame it is, yes, the importance was there to get the devices and the PPE out to the required areas as quickly as possible. But I'm going to flip it on the other side in terms of the importance that software played in that journey as well. So we don't want to underplay or downplay the importance of the software aspect of it. And when I look at it from a software side, it's really marrying the PPE supplies with the forecasted patient inflows and demand in certain areas. So if you think about using Power BI dashboards and then overlaying them with population data, it gives organizations the ability to forecast where the equipment needs to go. So yes, you can have the devices, you can have the equipment, but if they're landing at the wrong places, that also creates chaos and havoc. And then the second one is enabling our hardware partners like GE Healthcare to ramp up on their production and forecasting, again, through the power of software. So that's what I want to touch on the software side. And I'll put it back to Katrina on the hardware side if she has any insights there.
Thank you, TJ. I'm Katrina Diassis from Nemco Canada. Nemco does product safety certification and product testing. So yeah, the effect of COVID, as we all know, is huge to everyone in all industries. Now for product compliance per se, like we have to really work with the manufacturers in the very early stage of their development. As we know, certification can be sometimes, it will hinder the mass production or the quick turnaround of the product to get released to the market. So we've learned to work with the manufacturers. Like during COVID, we have manufacturers entering the medical equipment field who have no experience in the medical device. So we really have to collaborate with them, tell them the issues early on, and then help them through the compliance stage for them to be able to produce the product that they want to the market as quickly as possible.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Katrina, what are the biggest opportunities for innovators and startups stemming from this pandemic within the medical device regulation?
I think for startups and innovators, now that we are in the advent of telemedicine, and there's a lot. Telemedicine is a huge industry now. You have your hardware and you have your software and you have your connectivity there. So for compliance and and it's very important as well that as we are advancing these technologies, as we are inventing this, that compliance have to go with it. Like there are sometimes that we don't have available, say, standard for a certain equipment. Now we need to help as a whole. We need to work together as a one team, to be able to market this product. So it won't happen that the compliance side will be the bottleneck for product development. And secondly, I think for startup and innovators, now that we have seen that, we need to have local supply, we need to have medical devices invented in Canada, sold in Canada. So I think there's a huge market there, and we just need to collaborate and integrate the system.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And TJ, from your end, what do you find the biggest opportunities for innovators and startups in your field of IoT?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, IoT is a drastic field, but when I look at some of the areas where the opportunities exist right now, it's really data interoperability, right? It's there's the response times aspects of it. There's the cloud availability and security aspects of it. So those are the big four ones I look at. And if we look at how things are evolving with the number of devices that are coming onto the grid, there's, edge computing is going to play a huge factor as well in terms of how these devices are able to connect with one another, and then, be able to provide the actionable data that you need in record time to be able to, make sound decisions on it or off of it. And let's not forget about how IoT devices or that ecosystem works, right? If it's about the little things that we get at the end at the edge, if you will, whether there's a smartwatch or any other device that measures or collects data. But that whole purpose is to really collect insights from the data that comes back to us, and then from those insights are to basically make certain decisions or take actions. So, that entire ecosystem and the data interoperability, sure, as a startup, you can have the coolest gadget that you've invented, and it's a really cool medical, IoT medical device that you've created. How is it really connecting with, today's EHR, EMR systems or platforms that are out there? And if it's not, you end up being in a siloed environment. And I can share an example of working with one of our local Toronto hospitals when I was working with them directly. During the SARS outbreak, they had created a solution or hired a vendor to create a solution, and it was relevant at the time, but that hospital was stuck with that solution. The vendor who created it went out. The organized SARS obviously went away to a great extent, but that technology, to maintain it, to keep up with it, was very challenging for that hospital and their staff. And it becomes a pain point. So what I would recommend is thinking about the data interoperability and how your platform integrates with the other platforms out there. So if you've got FHIR standards, how does it integrate with that? Azure, Microsoft's platform has APIs that are built for FHIR interoperability as well. So are you taking advantage of those and building the solution to ensure that you stick around as an organization post the pandemic is what I would probably highlight.
Great, thank you so much. And despite COVID-19, technology has been developing at a fast pace to help the healthcare sector. How do you see startups and innovators working with hospitals? I know you touched a little bit about that, TJ. So with the hospitals, the healthcare providers, and health companies to improve Canada's healthcare system. So TJ, did you want to continue that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's the short answer is make it easy to integrate into the EHRs or EMRs, right? Because without that connectivity or that ease, it becomes a pain. It's a huge learning curve to any technology that we do introduce to the environment. That does slow things down as well. So the easier it becomes for them to get the data that they're looking from the system that they're used to, it makes it that much more efficient and worthwhile for those organizations. And it allows the startup the same opportunity to continue to grow within that rather than being in a siloed environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katrina, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think the startups and innovators would be the backbone of the healthcare system. But and again, as TJ mentioned, we need to be working together from the healthcare sector to the manufacturers to the compliance side. There has been a call for there has been a call for inputs when we had the COVID-19 to curb COVID-19, and there had been funding. So for sure, this will encourage the startups and innovators to get involved But again, we just need to synchronize our efforts and, make sure that the objective is achieved, that we will have a working healthcare system.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the past 16 months, approvals for medical devices and regulations have moved quickly, which has enabled technology and innovation to bridge gaps and help fight COVID-19. What do you think healthcare innovation will look like post-COVID? Katrina, did you want to start off?
Sure. Yeah, the way I see it, it will be more agile. Now we've seen how important it is to have a quick turnaround for medical devices. We need it at the point of care. We need it to be wearable, to be small, portable, and it would be low cost. So for this one to happen, we need to have these innovators and entrepreneurs get involved. So for the compliance side, however, again, as I mentioned, we need to have an understanding, a better understanding, as we have a faster technology. Regulators have to have a better understanding of the technology. Sometimes, we have a device that doesn't have an existing standard. So at the very beginning, we need to know, because we need to consult the standard making agencies and how to approach this to make sure that the device is still safe and effective. We want to have our devices safe and effective for use for public use. So yes, I guess for the future, there will be a lot of integration, hardware, software, and connectivity.
Yeah, it sounds like you and TJ need to connect following this. So TJ, did you want to elaborate on from your end?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we all can agree that innovation has moved very quickly. And when something moves as quickly as it did, we tend to miss a few things here and there. And my concern on that front is really on the compliance and the cybersecurity side of things, of which organizations, which pilots, and I'll call them pilots because that's pretty much what they were as they got launched, were basically slipped under the radar. So I would foresee a number of crackdowns coming in from a compliance perspective, as well as cybersecurity perspective, and causing ultimately some of the smaller organizations to really fold in that space. And so I would see innovation will continue, but not necessarily at the same rate. And I think there's going to be other measures that we need to introduce to ensure that the organizations that are coming in are taking all the necessary measures to protect themselves, as well as protecting the patient data or the user data that goes into it.
Yeah, and to kind of just expand on all of that, what do you feel the future of healthcare looks like, and what role do startups and innovators play? TJ, did you want to start off this one?
Sure, absolutely. I think when I look at the future of healthcare, or just future of IoT in general, I look at it as, most of the technology that we need is already here. So that future is already here. It's really about marrying those use cases, putting those and making them real. I remember a video that Microsoft released back in, I think it was about 2010, 2011 timeframe, which, really paved out the path of what the future of healthcare really looks like. And are we there yet? No, not necessarily, because that integration doesn't exist, right? And I'll send you guys a link to that will get posted, but that entire integration, that ecosystem doesn't exist the same way as it's been portrayed in the video. And that's what I think is holding us back. We have, institutions that are already playing with some of the latest technology. So Microsoft's HoloLens 2 has been used to perform surgeries, live surgeries, with surgeons being at remote destinations or remote locations. So now you don't necessarily need to fly someone in to come in and help with that surgery, whereas you can have someone across the world plug in through this technology, augmented reality or mixed reality, and help live, right? So you're not losing on critical time, you're not losing on the necessary resources, and it's not impacting lives directly just because we didn't have the right doctor in place. So there's, that future I think already is here. I think it's a matter of finding the right use cases and marrying them together and making it happen, bringing it to life. So I'll definitely share some of those videos with you guys in the chat, and hopefully you guys can get a chance to take a look at those.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds incredible. Yeah, we'll definitely share those off for everyone to view at a later time. Katrina, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, so I agree with TJ. You know, we need to integrate the system. We need to have the hardware, the software, and we need to get connected. And I want to also add to that, like we need to have a diagnostic equipment that is safe and effective. Meaning, you know, we have wearable devices, we have small devices that connects to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. But the most important thing is it safe and effective? Is it getting the right data? Because if we don't have the right data, then you know, like doctors and nurses cannot provide the correct treatment for say for a sickness. Now we need to improve on that one to make sure that the essential performance for a device has been addressed in, and we have to make sure that it's collecting and doing its job. So I think that's the main problem as well, like collection of data. If we have garbage in, we have garbage out. So we need to improve on that aspect. Yeah, so we can integrate, and then we can now look at it as a whole system and making it effective as a whole effective healthcare system.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you, TJ and Katrina, for that very insightful discussion. We do have a few questions coming in from our audience, and I do ask that if you have any additional, please ask away and we'll get to them as promptly. So let's start off with, we have a question from Christine. What potential do you see for photonic crystals in sensor developing, including in the life sciences? TJ, did you have a response to that? Sorry, you're muted.
I apologize. That's not an area that I'm really well versed on. So it's not an area that I would be able to address on.
Katrina, are you able to?
Sorry, Steph, I'm not also in that field, so yeah, I got no comment on that one.
Oh, no problem. So what healthcare challenge needs the most innovative thinking? Katrina, did you want to answer?
Yeah, I think as we've discussed, I'll just summarize on that one. We need to have, you know, efficient, effective devices that is out in the market. We need to make it available to the consumer, and we need to have, you know, the infrastructure, or I guess in TJ's field with the cloud, right? We need to have a support also to our cybersecurity. Like for NEMCO, we are entering now into the realm of cybersecurity because, as we know, this is where the in the technology is heading. It needs to have some we need to address the cybersecurity risk of the medical healthcare system.
And TJ?
Yeah, I think what I would add onto that is I think the short answer is it depends. It depends on the environment you're dealing with, the locality that you're dealing with as well, because there's going to be certain you know, organizations that are not going to have access to the same resources as some of the cutting edge or bleeding edge locations. So it's about drawing that balance of where is that funding going to go, where is that innovation going to go? Is it going to be to, you know, build out the latest and greatest while leaving some of the other regional hospitals per se behind because they haven't been up formed. So there's a balance I think that we have to look at and addressing and finding what the specific needs are for those regions, and then helping them infuse with the right technology and the right balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a question from Raj. It seems the potential is enormous. How do we engage more stakeholders? There is the standards and professional certification side of business development, which is our domain of expertise. Katrina?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat that question, Steph?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems the potential is enormous. How do we engage more stakeholders? There is a standards and professional certification side of business development, which is our domain of expertise.
So I think number one, there needs to be more funding, and we need to encourage the youth and, you know, the next generation to be involved in this one, to be involved in innovation and entrepreneurship. It's very important that again, we have your compliance hand in hand with the technology. So first, we need to have the human capital for it. Now, like in NEMCO, for example, it's very hard to find, you know, someone that is a knowledge on compliance? Is it the practical application of it? Now, we don't look at the product as is. We just don't look at it at hardware. We look at it, foreseeable misuse and things like that. Now, it goes with experience, right? So we have to have the human capital, as well as we need to invest more on science and technology. So yeah, I guess, there's a lot, there's really a lot of potential, and there's for sure a lot of improvement that the standards and compliance have to address to be able to adopt with the advancement in technology.
Yeah, that's great. TJ, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think it was Raj. You mentioned that the comment is bang on the op, right? And the interesting aspect of when you integrate IoT into any scenario, it's not about capturing that enormous market share anymore, right? It's really solving for that one specific use case, and that's where IoT gets very interesting. And so if you can identify what that pain point is for that organization or that business or that healthcare provider, and you can give them that solution, that interest will come in and that path will kind of start opening up. But it's one of the conversations I usually have is, what can we solve for? And that's what the challenge is. Like, you can solve for every single particular use case that's out there, but you have to marry that with someone who has that as a pain point to really capitalize on that opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. What is one piece of advice you'd give entrepreneurs trying to get into this sector? TJ? I
would say, don't downplay the impact of security. Much more important and relevant today, and it will continue to. So cybersecurity, whether it's from the hardware component all the way to the cloud, keep that top of mind. It shouldn't be an afterthought of, I'll deal with it afterwards. There's scenarios that I've been exposed to, or I've been hearing about, where just putting the risk or the data at risk and just imagine a simple scenario of two patients getting their data crossed, right? And now the medication, whatever else is that treatment's going to be, that getting crossed because of a mismatch or a breach within the data. Start with security as a foundation when building any solutions out. Don't let that be an afterthought.
Sounds like very important advice. Katrina, what advice would you give?
Yeah, so two things. One is manufacturers and the compliance side of things. So one, you have to know where to what is your target market, what country, what region, because different countries and different regions have different, although the concept is the same, they have different regulatory requirements. So you need to know that on hand, because you will have to need the resource, and you need time for it. You can gauge that to knowing that early on. And secondly, you need to get compliance or regulatory people involved in the very beginning of your product development. Is very important. Again, we don't want to have certification hinder the release to market of a certain medical device. So you get the certification body involved at the early stage, let them know, because at the end of the day, the manufacturer has the full knowledge of their device. We are here to make sure it's safe and effective. We have to share knowledge. We need to collaborate.
Yeah, I completely agree. I find they often don't think about where they're looking to go to market when they start. So that's very great advice. Thank you, Katrina. The COVID pandemic has made us look at areas in healthcare innovation that has never been looked at before. What are the areas that we need to keep digging in, from manufacturing down to business models? Katrina?
I think it depends on the market. I mean, it depends on what the manufacturer is into. They have to look, I guess, on the, you have your supply chain, you have your product development, you have your certification, and you have to, selling it to the market. So it depends on what is the I guess, the weakness of the manufacturer and address to that. And also you have to, as we've learned during the pandemic, we need to manage the risk. We need to prepare. So as we have this agile type of management, that is one way of reducing the risk as well. So it has to be mitigated. The risk has to be mitigated.
Yeah. And TJ, we are coming up to time. So did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, just I was going to say that the opportunity is through across the entire spectrum, right? There's the devices, there's the process, there's the all the elements in between. But I think from going from a software cloud perspective as well, it's that dashboarding, right? Like all of the stuff that we're building, that we're looking at, doesn't really give us any value or power without the visualization with the software to really understand and make those decisions. So, going back to understanding the importance of the software, the role it plays within all of this as well, is also something to think about. And I think is a huge strength and opportunity there as well for organizations.
Yeah, that's great. So unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today for Q&A. So TJ and Katrina, I'll pass it back to you to wrap up today's discussion.
Great. Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Really appreciate you folks reaching out. I'll make sure that my profile is also sent out from a LinkedIn perspective if anyone wants to follow up and connect with me after the fact, and I'll be happy to point you guys in the right direction from an innovation partner ecosystem perspective at Microsoft, or anything else from the Azure IoT world.
And thank you, everyone, and then thank you, Steph, for having us here. We, as I mentioned, NEMCO is a certification and product compliance agency. We offer services. You can go to our website, www.nemco.com. We have locations in Cambridge, Ottawa, and as well as in Montreal in Canada. So thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you both. I really enjoyed my time today, and thank you all for joining us in today's discussion on the intersection of hardware and healthcare. I hope to see you all back on FeedLoop at 12:55 for our second and final panel discussion of the day, inspiring the next generation of tech titans. Thanks, everyone. Take care.